Hello, everyone. Welcome to our preview edition of the Sash as we gear up for round one. And I'm very happy to be joined by SEN's Julian De Stoop. Hello, mate.
Hello, mate. How you going?
I'm good. We're between practice matches 1 and 2, and things are a little bit cautious at the moment. Wasn't the greatest showing, but we're hoping for something a little bit better this weekend.
Yeah, I guess the solace is we did exactly the same thing in the same practice match last year against the Saints and hit the ground running to start the season, 4 of the first 5. And, round 6, we were 28 points up against Collingwood at three-quarter time. So it didn't affect our start of the season. But, I want to see a little bit more against the Cats, particularly defensively. I'm not really worried about the score or, individual stats and all those sort of things. You want to get through without injury, obviously. We did that the other day. But, I'd just like to see a little bit more pressure on the opposition, whether it's the ball coming out or the outboard 50, and also when it does, just a little bit more structure, behind the ball to help the defence out because they didn't have much chance the other day. Only watching on tally, obviously wasn't there, but it looked pretty tough for the defenders. The ball was coming in unchallenged a lot.
Yes, it certainly was. All right, we'll get stuck into it. We've got 5 questions that we're going to be going through. So our first one off the bat, it's a big year for Blake.
It's a big year for, I think, the class of 2020, that draft where we had 3 picks inside the top 10. We're seeing, I think, a lot of good things from Archie Perkins. I think his year maybe last year was a little bit harshly criticised from some outside. I think he did some good things when he went on the ball. But what sort of player is Archie Perkins going to be? Is he going to be a full-time midfielder? Is he going to be more that sort of Cam Rayner, Jake Stringer type of player where he's maybe 12, 15 possessions a game, high impact, spending most of his time in the forward line and pinch hitting in the midfield? Or is he going to be that sort of player that is going to be a regular midfielder in the years to come? But then you sort of say that and you look at the team, you think, where's he going to get those midfield minutes from? If Parrish is in there, Merritt's in there, I get the feeling Brad Scott really likes Setterfield. When we played some of our best footy last year was when Setterfield was in the team because the big body, his ability to sort of play defensively as well. So I think he's starting in that centre bounce. And you've got Caldwell's got to get opportunity. Hobbs has got to get opportunity. Potentially Sardis has got to get opportunity. I think Durham they like to throw in there from time to time. So even if we think Archie Perkins is the full-time midfielder, is he going to get that opportunity? So we've seen enough from Archie, I think, to see he's going to be a really good player. But can he go to the next level? And then the other 2 boys from that draft, we just need to see play some footy. I thought there's some... There's only match simulation, basically. But I thought there's some good signs from Zach Reid the other day. Thankfully, his body's okay, touch wood, and he can start the season. I think as he builds into the season and he gets some games, I'm pretty confident he's going to be a really good key defender for us alongside Ben Mackay and Jordan Ridley down there. And what that does for Jane Laverty's position, who knows? And then, obviously, the other one is Nick Cox. And I don't know about you, but I don't see the position Nick Cox is going to play. I mean, he came in as a wingman, was really good early, but that is such a difficult position to play wing. You've got to be so fit, up and back. I don't think he's got that. The only sort of position I can see him playing is sort of intercept defender, but that's sort of Ridley's job. That's sort of Redmond's job. So I don't know about you, but I just can't see a place for Nick Cox in this team right now. What that means for his future at the club, I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I struggle to see him in the round 1 team unless he does something unbelievable against Geelong in the practice match. I don't really see him there. I feel like they're going to set him up to play as a halfback, like you said, in that Redmond-Ridley role. And he might just be, first drop if Ridley's not available, which could be good for him to get some minutes. Obviously, he's got a huge leap. He can take a good grab. He did take a nice mark in that St Kilda game, but it was probably the only thing he really did. And like you said, the wing is a really hard position, and I feel like the real dominant wingmen in the game are the ones who are just up and back and up and back. And whilst he has got that height advantage, I'm not sure if he's got the running capability those other guys have. I think he's yet to prove that. So, yeah, I'm kind of with you. I really don't know where Nick is right now. Obviously, I do hope he makes it with us at some point, but it is a great unknown. Reedy, like you said, good signs against St Kilda. I think there's going to be some teething problems, though, with him and Mackay. There definitely were times where there's the time where the defenders swap and one guy goes to him, one guy goes to him. And I think they're a bit confused because, Ridley and Laverty have kind of done that together for a couple of seasons. Obviously, BZT was there too. But I do feel like in this first sort of month of football, assuming they're both playing together, that we might see the odd, two guys going up for the same ball or a bit of finger pointing going on. But he definitely shows sign. And Perkins, it's a hard one because now that Durham is getting centre bounce times and he was in a lot of them against St Kilda, I'm sitting there going, where does Archie fit? Like, I think his best games have been when he's played there, like the Carlton game last year, for example. He was awesome, but where's he going to be? And it's a bit of a problem because I think we've got, like you said, you named them all. We've got 8 inside midfielders and no one who's really locked down that half-forward position. So you're right. It's a big year for all three. It's interesting to see what's going to happen. And next question. The greatest unknown for Essendon in 2024 is
the greatest unknown for Essendon in 2024, and I think we touched on it with the practice match, is will they improve defensively as a whole team? Not the back six, but as a whole team. I thought our defensive times last year were really good. They held up against a wave of ball, a wave of unpressured ball, but until this team can defend the ground better, they're not going to make the jumps that we hope they do. So, look, it's absolutely the tiniest of sample sizes. Didn't look great out there against the Saints, but that is the big challenge. I think certainly for a big parts of the year last year, it did improve. That sort of coast-to-coast goals that we conceded so often in previous years, they were down a bit, but there were still some times when the ball moved far too easy out of our forward 50 right down the ground and resulted in the goal. Position. That's the thing with our small forwards. The small forward position has become so important. You touched on it there, Hobbs has played a bit there and Caldwell's played a bit there and Perkins played a bit there. And they can all play that role. They can all hit the scoreboard and they take mark overhead and so they can play it. But if you look at the premiership teams in the last few years, those high half forwards that can get up and back, so important. Look at Bobby Gill and McCreary and the year before it was Close and Myers. In the Richmond era, it was Butler the first year, and then Castagna and Rioli. We need those sort of players. I'm happy if they kick less goals. If they can be like a Tip and Woody and just spook the opposition and fight for their life to keep that ball in. Menzies shows signs of doing that. I don't think Guelphy's got the leg speed to do it as much as he puts in the effort. I'm not sure Gresham is that sort of player as well. So I think for a whole defensive system to improve, it just has to be that want from the smaller players up there to lock that ball in the forward line. And that's why I think we can't go too tall with our forward line. I mean, people talking about, Wright and Jones and Stringer and playing 2 rucks. I think that is an unbalanced team if we did that. I'd worry about our forward line if that was the system where you had Jones, Wright, Stringer, and then a mix of those other players that I mentioned. So, if we can't keep the ball in our forward line more, and fight harder to keep it in, it's going to make it very hard to improve the defensive side of the game.
I tend to agree. I'm interested to see where Nick Hind lines up this season.
He's going to be important.
Supposedly spent a fair bit of time in the forward line over the summer. And if you go back to last season, when we were playing a very sort of slow, cautious way of transitioning the ball, I think a lot of that was about let's just play it slow so we're not getting killed very, very quickly. And then as the season went on, we tried to be a bit faster. It came back the other way faster. So it's as much on those forwards, but I think it's also on our users as well. And Nick Martin's gone to halfback. He is a good user, as we know. And I think he is going to be really vital, along with the other halfbacks too, just to making sure that we're not just turning the ball, between the arcs, because as soon as you start doing that, it comes back very quickly. So I think that's going to be very interesting, and there's going to be a fair bit of pressure on Nick to perform, as well as your Redmonds, your McGraths, Heppel if he's in the side too. So it is an unknown. It's a real unknown to see if we do grow on that. You'd think they're fitter than they were last season. Like they weren't in Ibiza, they went to Arizona for
look fitter.
They do look fitter. So I'm hoping that means that in those latter stages we don't see the collapse that we did last year, and hopefully there's no 10-goal plus losses in 2024. We'll move on to number 3. I'm most concerned about what?
Yeah, I'm most concerned. I'd have to say I'm most concerned about Harry Jones. I really like what he did in 2021, where he's sort of
Yeah.
that, that key footy. I don't think he had a lot of forward craft, but his ability to jump at the ball, take a nice mark. He hasn't got the greatest kicking routine, or it doesn't look great, but he was
Yeah.
pretty accurate. But just he hasn't played a lot of footy, and listening to a few of the guys that have been down, to watch every training, every match, Simming hasn't really set the world on fire there. He certainly didn't set the world on fire the other day, but tough conditions, really windy, and the ball wasn't going down that great. But he's only on the 1-year deal. He could have got bigger offers to go somewhere. There's been question marks, and at times his attitude and his willingness to work. So it is make or break time for Harry Jones, and he's the sort of guy that probably needs to hit the season running, and he probably hasn't done that so far. So, yeah, it's a massive yacht. As I say, I really liked him in 2021. I thought we'd found a good one there, and it'd be good, him and Wright would be a really good combination. But as I said before, if Brad seems determined to play the two ruts, and therefore, on the balance of the team, I'm not sure, unless he's really banging the door down and playing great footy, I don't think he's in there. So with only 1 year left on his contract, and I think we would love to find a really good support for Peter Wright to take a bit of pressure off him. I've got some concerns about Harry heading into the year.
Yeah, it's a hard one because he's obviously, now that Langford's proven that he's a good forward, he's sort of slipped to third forward in a sense, even fourth if you include Stringer as a sort of key type player. And then, there's a fair bit of hype around Nate Caddy, who won't play every game. It's unlikely as a first-year key forward that he will, but the word on the street is the kid looks pretty talented, and we may just be come this time next season, we'll be talking about how excited we are for Caddy season 2, and Jones might not be at the club. So yeah, you've got every right to be concerned because there's a lot of things not going his way. He'll play games. There's no way all those guys stay fit every single week. We know what Stringer's like. Caddy's a first-year player. Hopefully, Peter Wright doesn't have any issues like last season, but he'll get a crack. Whether or not he takes it is another question. Question 4: the best inclusion to Essendon's team this year will be what?
The best inclusion in the Essendon team this year, I think, will be Ben Mackay. I take your point. I think you're right. There'll be some teething problems early. You've got Mackay, who's learning a new system, and Zach Reid, who's hardly played any footy. So those two are fit. I mean, Ridley is so important. I mean, I reckon behind Zach Barrett, he's our most important player. He's the glue in that back six, and his ability to intercept and use the ball beautifully off half back. He is the glue. So I think they'll look a better combination when Ridley's the third pillar down there as the interceptor. But I mean, he's a good player, Ben Mackay. He's got the size, and I really admired Brandon Zerk-Thatcher last year. I thought he was fighting against the odds so often, but fought. Laverty was the same. So if he can stand up and Reid can stand up, the balance for Ridley and Laverty that can play on, Ridley can be that interceptor. Laverty, if he's in the team, can play on guys more his own size. We might see the team be monstered by Tom Hawkins, monstered by Jesse Hogan, monstered by Charlie Dixon. It might happen every now and then, but not 4 or 5 times a year that we've seen in recent years. So I think of the 4 that have come in, he's the one that I expect to have the most impact. And I think once he settles and finds his feet, I think he's going to be just a reliable player that, can take the best ball of the opposition and, in the main, keep them on a leash.
Yeah, he's hoping. He's going to be under a fair bit of pressure, and I'm fairly certain he's going to be the highest paid player this year in the league, just the way his contract is going. And I remember saying end of last season on a trade podcast, I said, my prediction for next season is that if he has a bad start, we're going to see that many mark per dollar articles in the paper. And I just really hope that that's not the case. I hope he has a good start. Ideally we beat Hawthorn and we're at least competitive against Sydney, and we go from there, and we're not in that position because I think it's the last thing you want starting in a new club, being, arguably the biggest trade deal of the window, to have this pressure on you and it's not going well, because we just need to be competitive. It's okay if he has a couple of goals kicked on him. That's pretty expected, but you just got to not be monstered, as you say. When he was at North, what did you think of him? Because I'll be honest, I didn't see a great deal of him.
It's good. Look, to be honest, I thought he was a good player. But then I didn't realise, I know stats aren't everything, but I didn't realise how strong he was actually as an interceptor. I didn't realise his numbers as an intercept defender. So I sort of more saw him as that sort of dour, spoiling fullback, and not that fullback that at times can do that and also intercept. So sort of his numbers said to me he's probably a better player than maybe I gave him credit for. And obviously he's in a team where there was a lot of ball coming down, and a lot of a bit like our team in recent years. There was a lot of pressure on the ball coming in. So look, that you're right. I mean, with the paycheck comes the pressure. And look, I already had a mate from another club say he was playing like a $250,000 player the other day. That's one practice game. So you can imagine if, it's a tough start. Mitch Lewis is a good player. Round 1, that's a big job up against Mitch Lewis. Round 2, the Swans have got a heap of tall forwards, and then he gets another chance against Max King in round 3. So the challenges come every week in terms of the key forwards. And he is a bit of a confidence player. He's had, some, like Harry's had some issues. Well, particular Ben in the early days at North, he had some issues around his mental health, and he could be a bit fragile. He's clearly come a long way since then. So yeah, I'm like you. I just hope for his sake that he can make a good solid start, and then it really rolls on from there.
Yeah, exactly. I think he can build off those first few games if it goes right, but yeah, there's just that part of me that worries. I do worry for him with the price tag and the pressure that comes with it.
Certain pressure, there's no doubt about that.
Oh. Exactly, yeah. Like I think probably Dylan Shield would be the last guy who's come in with a big contract like that with all the pressure on him. So fingers crossed it works out for Ben, and yeah, hopefully midway through the season we can roll Carlton and he can beat up on his brother. Which
brothers might finally play on each other.
I know. All the conspiracy theories about whether the R1 player will finally be
get rid of them.
Will be solved. Yeah. Question 5: Essendon will finish what position on the ladder? Because
Essendon will finish 10th in 2025. I'd love to say finals, and I thought after that Adelaide game last year we were going to make it. I thought we were playing well enough and had enough winnable games on the run home to make it, and then we all know what sort of happened after that game with a few injuries, and it all fell away. So I think we'll be better this year. I just think the competition is so tight. Like, really... Only North Melbourne, West Coast, and Hawthorn, I don't think can play finals. I think you can make a case for the other 15 teams. I just look at the other teams. Last year there was 4 changes in the top 8. I can't see there being that many again this year. I think maybe only a couple. And therefore, if you look at the teams that are outside that have got, I think Adelaide and the Dogs look pretty strong. It's going to be hard to keep them out. Who knows? The Suns under Damien Hardwick as well, if they can make that extra jump and play finals. I just think some of those teams are a little bit ahead of us at this stage. So I'd love to say finals in 2024. I think they're on the right track. I think we've got a good squad of younger players now, but just how good are they? Are they going to be good, solid B graders? Is there 3 or 4 that can jump up to A graders? Probably this year won't tell the tale completely about that, but I think it'll give us a good indication if a Reed can come in and play some really good footy. Can Perkins go to the next level? Corp will go to the next level. Can Hobbs go to the next level? Can Sardis show us what he's made of? We've got a lot of high draft picks on the list now. But are they going to turn into those A-grade players? I think that's we'll find out a bit about that this year. So, yeah, not sure we've got enough to play finals this year. So I think 10th is about where we'll finish in 2024.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I was looking at the ladder from last year and, there's only... all the way down to Gold Coast. Basically, it's 1 or 2 more wins for all those sides outside the 8, and then they'd make it. That's how close it is. And, if you're going on home and away wins, you say that Brisbane, Port, and Collingwood are in, and then from everyone else down, like it's a bit of a lotto as to how things go. I guess what I'm hoping for this season is, look, obviously I want finals. Obviously I want to win finals. That's a no-brainer. But I guess what I'm hoping is that the floor of our playing ability is lifted, so we're not getting rolled by those 10-goal margins, and we're in all our games coming into the last quarter. We're in them, and then win or lose, that's when we know that we've actually improved or not. Hopefully, there's some more wins along the way.
Yeah,
but,
if you stop the season after that Adelaide game last year, you would have ticked all those boxes. We won more than we lost, and you look at the games against the big clubs, we were pretty competitive. Collingwood Anzac Day, Port Adelaide. We lost by a kick over there. The Brisbane game, I didn't really look into that because we were out. We played 4 games in 15, 16 days. We're out on our feet. after half time that day. And obviously the
Andrew
Geelong
Phillips
game
was on
blown
Hipwood,
away
I think.
First quarter, but,
Yeah.
the remaining 3 quarters were pretty good. It's just those last few games against the big guns, the Dogs and the Cats down there. Not they were big guns last year, but always tough to beat them down there. Obviously, the last 2 games, it fell away quite dramatically. So I'm with you. You just want to turn up knowing what you're going to get. And if you get beaten, the opposition really has to beat you. So I think for 2/3 of the season last year, we did that. And obviously, it fell away for the final third. But yeah, if we can do that for the whole 23 matches, and if we just miss out, well, we're not quite good enough. But yeah, you just want to. We've been talking about it for years. You want to know what Essendon team you see when you rock up. And let's hope we can do that for a whole season.
Yeah. Do you think I've seen a fair few predictions for where Essendon will finish. There's a lot of people who are saying we're bottom 4. There's a lot of people saying we're bottom 6. Do you think that the way we ended the season has kind of just gone, this is who we are and where we're at? And look, we know obviously what happened against St Kilda over the weekend, but do you think there's some people out there in the footy media landscape who's kind of forgotten how good we were at times last year? Because look, I'm like you. I think we're a middle 6, middle 8 team. Best case scenario, 7 or 8. Reality is we're probably somewhere between 9 and 12. But do you think there are a lot of people who have gone, oh, well, they were terrible in those last few games. That's kind of where they are?
I think it's skewed it a bit. I mean, it's a bit of recency bias, isn't it? The way a team finishes a season, and particularly if you're not heavily invested in that team and you might not have been watching him as closely for the whole season, you sort of just do your snap judgment on the way they finished. And, the old arguments, oh, look at them, so easy to score against again, haven't improved in that part of the game, and they've missed the 8 again. So I can see why people have looked at it like that, but I think it's a little bit out of kilter for what I said before. The majority of the season was like where there certainly was some gains with individuals. There were certainly not big gains, but there were some small gains in the defensive aspect of the game. And kicking goals certainly isn't a problem. I remember going into last year, like Josh Jenkins, who I work with here, so I said, where's Essendon going to get their goals from? But that certainly wasn't the problem. Langford and Menzies came in, and we can get more footy in Stringer. This year, there should be some more goals there. So the attack part of the game was pretty good. I think overall the assessment's been a little bit hard on Essendon going into this year based on the way that finished, particularly the last 2 games, which were embarrassing, to be honest. So, I think the truth is a little bit closer to the first 16, 17 rounds than the last 7 or 8.
Yeah, I agree. I'm very excited to see a fit and healthy Peter Wright with Kyle Langford in the forward line, because we didn't really, we got a few glimpses of it last season, but Peter obviously wasn't 100% last year coming off that shoulder reco. So I'm actually pretty keen to see Peter with the number 1 defender on him, Langford with probably the number 2 defender on him, and we saw what he did to some really good defenders in the comp last season, and I'm sort of like, I feel like we can kick some pretty good scores, but it's just what happens the other way, I think, is the biggest issue for us. So just a real quick one, Crichton Medal prediction, who's going to win it?
I think if he can play a full year, I mean, it's hard to go past Zach every year, and I think Darcy Parish, if he didn't miss games last year, would have been close. But I think if you look at his year last year, and the whole, it was more than just him, but that third quarter, wasn't against the Dogs when he ripped his squad, Jordan Ridley. Things fell apart from there. So I think if he plays a full year, he doesn't have to play on, times he's played on like Aaron Norton, who are far too big for him, and he's been super competitive. But in McKay and Reid and or Laverty, 2 of those 3 are playing and locking down the big boys. And he can be that James Sicily type that doesn't have to worry about his opponent so much and can just intercept and use the ball beautifully. I think he can win his second Crichton Medal if his body stays sound.
I like it. Yeah, fingers crossed for big things for Reds. I feel like he's due an All-Australia nomination at some point in his career, and hopefully this is the year. Jules, very generous with your time. Thank you for joining me and giving your thoughts on what might happen for us in 2024, and we'll speak soon.
Pleasure, Rob. Let's hope it's a good year.
G'day, everyone. Continuing our preview of the upcoming 2024 season for Essendon, and I'm very excited to be joined by Footyology, ESPN, and 3AW's very own Rohan Connolly. Hello, mate.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Rob.
That's great to be with you. Great to be with you. We're between practice matches 1 and 2 for the Bombers at the moment. The first one wasn't too great. What were your initial thoughts on that one?
I'm smiling because I'm trying to be diplomatic. Less than underwhelming, I thought. I did I went along with the AFL Captain's Day on Monday and had a quick word to Zach Merritt and a couple of the the media people there, and I did say to them, the natives are getting restless, and by the natives I mean me. Yeah, it was really disappointing because I think the way things finished last year, you'd sort of hope they'd be very, very keen to make a statement, albeit in a relatively unimportant scratch game. And I think, I don't know if I'm speaking for the bulk of Essendon supporters, but I'm a bit sort of tired of this. Oh yeah, it's only a practice game. Wait till the season starts. It's early season. Wait till mid-season, and then it's never been singing the same song for a while. So I'm certainly hopeful of a better performance against Geelong.
Yes, fingers crossed. Yeah, I haven't quite thrown the baby out with the bathwater yet, but I was very close. I'll tell you that much. We'll crack into the preview, mate. We've got 5 questions that I'm keen to hear your thoughts for. So I'll start with number 1. It's a big year for blank.
It's a big year for. I'm going a double barrel one here. I think Nick Cox and Harry Jones. And some obvious similarities there. They're both perpetually injured. And they're two guys who have both shown, importantly, glimpses of really good form and ability at the level. But it feels like so long ago now. And for Jones, it was 2020, wasn't it? It was the hub year. I thought he showed some really good signs playing, in that key forward role. And ditto Cox in his first year in 21, particularly early in that year. And look, I mean, it's just frustrating. There's so many Essendon players that have had this sort of same path. They come in as young players, show something, then they run into injury problems, and then they come back and they just don't reach the same level. And unfortunately, that's been the case with both of them, hasn't it? I mean, Jones, when he came in last year, just seemed to have lost all confidence. And Cox, I thought, Cox has looked a bit all at sea too. And I know, they're sort of trying to change his role now, but it's sort of all the more frustrating that each of them, I think, has shown a significant enough patch of, really decent promise at senior level. So I think, it's just got to a stage where, time's up, guys. You've got to A, get on the park, and B, show a bit, I think, to justify being retained on the list, because it's been, this is year 5 or year 6, I think, for Jones, and year
4 for Cox,
4 for Cox. So, look, we've got to see something. I don't think you can afford to carry guys on the list that long now if they're simply not even getting out there. So those two, for me, stand out in that regard.
Obviously, we haven't seen the second practice match against Geelong just yet, but would you have Jones in your round 1 team? Because, now with the emergence of Kyle Langford as a forward, we obviously know that Peter Wright's the number 1 man down there, and Stringer will move through there as well. Like, is there room for him in round 1?
Well, not on form. I mean, if you're talking purely about structure, I'd say yes, because, Langford and Stringer all fine and well, but they're not key position size. And I'm a bit of a old-fashioned traditionalist, but I think you need 2 genuine key forward size forwards. And I think if you don't have that, then, opposing defences can double team or triple team right. And, if the delivery's at all compromised, it's a lot harder for Langford and Stringer. So, and Jones at his best, he's a good mark. He's a good contested mark. So I'd like to see him in there, but you've got to show some semblance of form. And, look, right now, I mean, he could still do something against Geelong, but based on what I saw against the Saints, I wouldn't have him in. Although I did hear one of the commentators say he'd been amazing, which was... I was amazed to hear that comment, because I don't think he was.
Yeah, well, not so sure about that one. Yeah, I think it might be a bit of a death knell for him is the emergence of Nate Caddy onto the list now, and he's had a fair bit of hype over the off season. Doesn't look like he's going to be playing against Geelong and round 1, but I think if that young guy cracks the team, then that might spell the end for Jones. Cox, obviously, the other one you spoke of there. We've seen him on the wing, what he can do. It seems like they might try him at halfback. I mean, if you were running the show, where do you think you would get the best out of him?
That's an interesting one, isn't it? I'd be interested to see him up forward, to be honest. But
Okay.
I liked what he did on a wing. It sort of reminded me of Cooter a bit, and we're going way back. But
Yep.
that sort of super tall wingman, very mobile. Can be. You get that sort of kick out from the back 50 down the line, and you've got a marking presence who can also run and carry. So I liked him on a wing. Look, they know better than me. They work with these guys all the time.
Right.
So I'm sure there's a decent rationale to playing him in defence. But
Yeah.
it seems like everyone's being turned into a running half back now. How many of them can you have?
Yeah.
So I personally, I wouldn't mind seeing him on a wing again.
Yep. Don't mind that. We'll move on to our second question. The greatest unknown for Essendon in 2024 is what?
Yeah, for me, I think the greatest unknown in 2024 is probably how quickly the side can gel. And specifically, I'm saying that because of the inclusion of those new senior players. And, I'm talking about Goldstein, Gresham, Dersmer and Mackay. And all four of whom, maybe not Goldstein, but you could see all four of those guys. I think three of those guys are definitely in the best 22. And at times, at least half the time, Goldstein as well. So you bring in four new players and then maybe throw in a caddy or a couple more when we haven't sort of thought about off the top of my head. And you've got, a quarter to a third of a lineup that is new. And any coach will tell you, when there's an influx of new players into a side, it takes some time to bed it down, and they've got to, learn to work together. And I often feel that more so with a defensive group, which is interesting. And that was the other point I noted too when I was thinking about this, that those four guys, they're all in different parts of the ground, so you've got Mackay in defence, you've got Gresham up in the forward 50 near goal, you've got Goldie in the ruck, and you've got Dersmer on a wing. So, there's going to be at least sort of one new face, if not more, in every part of the ground. And that can affect your cohesion. Obviously they've done a full pre-season. But, it takes time. And, I think the best sides really end up being the groups of players who have played together and really got some good wins and cohesion and form and stability under their belts over a period of 2 or 3 years at least. Doesn't mean they can't really make an impact, but I don't think that group necessarily will reach its peak for a couple of years at least. So how quickly they can blend in with what Brad Scott wants to do, that's the big unknown for me.
Yeah, and I tend to agree. I think the defence is where I think it might be the hardest because, like you mentioned, there are other newer faces. Like Zach Reid is essentially a new player. That's how little he's been actually out in the field. And if him and Mackay had to play together for most of the season, they're two guys who've never played together at all, and then they've got to gel with the other guys who have. So, yeah, I think that will take time. Judging on the very small sample size of the St Kilda game, I did feel Gresham fitted in the east like best so far, but that's very, very early days. So, yeah, hopefully it doesn't take too long, but you're right. We could be looking at 5, 6, maybe more regulars to the team, different to how it looked last year. So, I think most coaches would say to you that's going to take time to gel. Question 3 for you, Rohan. I am most concerned about what?
Probably the forward line, to be honest. And it's interesting. I was having a look at the points for and against, and they were 13th for points for and 15th for points against, which, superficially you'd think, well, okay, the defence is a bigger concern. But I don't know. I'm liking the look of what's coming together in defence. I think Mackay will make a difference. You've got hopefully an injury-free Ridley. Redmond's very solid. And I think too that it's sort of, don't take my word for it, coaches say it's sort of easier to teach defence
Yeah.
We saw Melbourne do that under Paul Roos a decade ago. They sort of started with that defensive building block. So, I wouldn't be surprised if that continues to improve. I'm a bit worried about the depth of talent in that forward 50 and the structure. I mean, I mentioned before the dearth of sort of genuine key position forward options. And that to me is a real concern. And you have a look at the goals from last year. They only had 3 guys that kicked more than 20 goals.
Yeah.
Langford, fantastic. I love Cole Langford and fantastic season from him. But I wonder whether he, as a forward, sort of got under the guards of a few sides last year because, I mean, he might have even got under Essendon's guard because he wasn't supposed to even play as a forward. And then he did. And I reckon opponents will have done a bit more homework on Kyle as a goal-scoring target. So will he kick 50 goals again? I mean, he very well could, but I think it's going to be tougher for him. So that's one thing to consider. And Peter Wright, look, he was terrific in 22, but, history suggests he's not the most durable guy going around. And I think, as good as he is, I think he can be sort of bustled out of the contest sometimes, particularly if he's the only sort of genuine key target. So can they rely on him to be the sole sort of chief goal kicker if the other guys have quiet days? And then, the other one is Stringer or Caddy, but first-year player, you can't expect a first-year player to be carrying the attack. And Stringer, well, we all know what he's capable of, but we also all know how erratic and unpredictable he can be. So can you count on him? I look at that forward group and I think, I wouldn't be staking my life on them kicking a big score every week. And I think you need to. I think, the game now, you have to have that balance between defence and attack. And Collingwood last year, I think they were, fourth defensively and fourth for attack. It's simply not enough to be strong in one area and weak elsewhere. St Kilda's a good example. St Kilda were the number one defensive team in the comp last year, but they were only 15th for points scored. And they got, well, not blown away, but they got beaten pretty comfortably in the first week of the finals by a side that can score.
Yeah.
So you got to be able to kick goals. And I just, look, I'd love to be wrong, but I look at that forward group and I think, it's just, I wouldn't be staking my life on it.
Yep. Like, I feel like those, more key options, the guys you've listed kind of pick themselves. Where do you sit with the small forwards? Because I feel like we've only got a couple of legitimate small forwards and then we've just got an overflow of midfielders who we just play there because we want to put them on the ground. So, like, who are your sort of preferred smalls if they're fitting into that forward, 6, 7, 8 players?
No, I agree with what you're saying. I think clearly that's what Gresham has chiefly been recruited for. He might have a spell through midfield, but I think it's that small goal-kicking role he's been picked up for. So I really rate him. It's interesting, St Kilda, I've spoken to St Kilda people who've talked him down a bit, and, there's been the odd query about his sort of, fashionable to say it's around Essendon, but, did he maintain the lifestyle of an elite player? I think that was some of the concerns, but there's no doubt in terms of ability, he's got really good natural ability. His kicking's had a bit of a knock on it occasionally, but I think that can be fixed. So I see him as a real chance. Jai Menzies in patches, I think, has shown a bit. Is he classy enough to do that role? Beyond that, I don't know. I've got this thing in the back of my head. There's someone I'm forgetting, and feel free to fill in the blanks.
Davey Jr., Mac Guelphy, they're probably the other two guys you could throw down there.
Guelphy to me is what you're talking about. It's a midfield. Let's try and turn a midfielder into a small forward. Davey Jr. Maybe, but you look pretty well. The uninjured one, looked pretty raw from what we saw last year. So you'd think a way off yet, and it's a really important role. I mean. They don't have to be superstars, but you have to be able to apply that defensive pressure. Carlton's a good example of this. I mean, Carlton, okay, they've got Curnow and Mackay, the other Mackay, but I think a key for Carlton, their improvement has been the pressure that the likes of, Motlop and Owies and Jack Martin and those guys can apply. And Essendon, they really haven't had enough of that since McDonald Tipungwuti was, at the peak of his powers, which is a while ago now. So they desperately need someone to bob up. So they'll be pinning a lot of hopes on Gresham. And he, for me, is clearly the standout in that role.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I really like Joe Menzies as a pressure player, but I think you're right. I don't think he has that just absolute goal sense that the real good small forwards have just yet. And then David Jr., there's clearly some talent there, but yeah, there was definitely a lot of times last season where, bigger, mature bodies were around him, and I think he just kind of wilted in those moments, which it's a first-year play. It's bound to happen. So, yeah, it's hard to see where there's going to be goals coming from other than Gresham, as you mentioned. The next one, number 4, the best inclusion to Essendon's team will be what?
I'm going for an individual. I think Xavier Dersma. I'm really excited about him.
Yep.
I think people might have... He's had a couple of pretty injury-afflicted years. I think people might have forgotten just how good he was.
Yeah.
E.g., we were the first couple of seasons, he was quite rightly bracketed alongside Rosie and Butters. And they've now had that sort of breakout couple of years where injuries haven't been kind to him, but also some form and confidence as well. Just speaking to people who know him really well, I'm pretty confident, he's just been desperate to get a shot at it. He had to play... And you might have heard this, I know a few Essendon people have talked about this, but the people I spoke to, swear by this, that he really had to sacrifice his own game to fit into the Port structure last year, particularly, to the extent where, he was sort of almost a decoy at times, sort of running away from the ball and from the contest. And that's not, that's not him. He's a skillful player. He's got pace, he's got good skill, and he's good near goal. To me, it seems pretty obvious he should be one of the wingmen. And, I think he represents something that Essendon has chronically lacked for a long while, i.e. pace and skill.
Yeah.
I just think it's pretty simple. Essendon needs a lot more of both of those things, and he's got them. So, and he's... he'll have motivation to spare, I think. I reckon his pride would have been really stung a bit by... Well, the fact that he sort of fell off the perch there, but, those two guys that he was sort of drafted alongside 5 years ago or whatever it was, they're now seen as elite players and he not so much. So he's got a point to prove, and I think Essendon can really use the qualities he has.
Yeah, I think that's definitely what I'm hoping for, is to, revisit that first season. It's funny, I look at some of the guys that we've brought in, and there's kind of a real sort of similar theme to it, where they had some really big early years and then they've kind of faded away, whether it be through injury or form or whatever it may be. Gresham's the same. Mackay maybe not as much, and obviously Goldstein's a bit different. But those two in particular, it's that sort of same story, that first few years they were absolutely flying, and then something kind of happens. And honestly, before he was linked to coming to Essendon, I kind of had forgotten about Dersma. He wasn't something that I was thinking about week in, week out, because, as you said, it's all about Rosie, it's all about Butters, and if it's not those guys, it's, Wines and the rest of the Port Adelaide crew, and he really is the sort of forgotten player. And look, last year we kind of had it with Nick Martin, but I feel like we really haven't seen damaging wingmen from Essendon for a sustainable period for, God, I can't even count how long it's been, you know what I mean? Martin really showed, this is what we can do with a damaging wingman. Now, apparently he's going to half back, and that's another discussion. But, you look at the really good teams, and whether it's, say, Geelong guy who won the Norm Smith medal, Isaac Smith, or you look at Brayshaw, who just retired, and what an elite wingman can do. And I'm like, when was the last time Essendon had an elite wingman? It's 20 years ago, just about.
I was thinking of Merv Nagel.
Yeah, okay, more than that, more than 20.
Back in the mid-'80s. Probably, I think Adam Ramanauskas perhaps, but, that's 25 years ago or 24 years ago now. So, the wing is a position that's had a real resurgence in the last few years. So, again, I think he can really offer a lot.
Yep, fingers crossed. And our final question, Essendon will finish blank on the ladder because why?
Well, here's the sting in the tail. So I'm used to Essendon supporters being dirty on me. So no surprise. Look, I'm a glass half empty man. In fact, I often say to people, my glass never had anything in it. I've just been burned too many times and I'm too old and cynical to, just exist on hope alone. So don't get me wrong, I like what they've done. Look, they were fifth on the ladder last year after 17 rounds. Was that inflated a bit by the quality of opponent? Yeah. I think the draw is a bit tougher this year. So there's plenty of ifs and buts. The depth's better. But for me, ultimately, Essendon still doesn't have enough A-grade players. And until they emerge, I'm not saying they can't, but, I talked about Cox, Jones, Reid. These guys have got to play.
Yeah.
What I'm pinning my hopes on is, as a supporter, is the likes of Hobbs, Durham, Caldwell, Perkins, those four in particular, because they do get on the park at least, really going to another level. If that happens, you get that sort of natural improvement from within, and Essendon really finds, 4 or 5 other guys to exist at the same level Zach Merritt's on. Great. But until then, I just don't have enough faith in them. So I don't have them making the 8. In fact, I just did a ladder last night.
Okay.
And brace yourselves, I've got them 12th.
Okay, that's all right.
I should say, the gap between 12th and finals is pretty narrow these days. And I know you say it every year, but, if you doubt me, do the exercise of putting together a predicted ladder and you will inevitably end up with a team who you think's not bad, sitting in about 12th or 13th and going, how did that happen? It's so tight that it will come down to things like injuries and luck. And look, don't get me wrong, Essendon could absolutely make the finals, but I think all things being equal, I just don't have them in that top 8 team. So 12th for me. 12. And I really hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Yeah, that's okay. Look, pessimism is constant on this program, and I think one of my panelists predicted us to win the wooden spoon last season. So that's the kind of show that this is. We do enjoy getting dark. So there's going to be a lot of listeners who echo those feelings. And yeah, I know what you mean. Like I've gone through the ladder from last year, and like there's 3 teams who on home and away form should clearly play finals, and there's 3 teams who clearly shouldn't, and everyone else, anything could happen. Like absolutely anything could happen. Like you said, a few bad injuries, a coach blows up and gets sacked, like something could happen, or the opposite, a few stars emerge from nowhere. And look, just to extrapolate on that, I mean, it is absolutely tighter than it's ever been at the top of the ladder. And the proof of that is last year's final series. I mean, we had 9 finals. 5 of them were decided by 7 points or less, and Crazy. 8 of the 9 were decided by 24 points or less. Wow.
Collingwood won 3 finals by a total of 12 points.
It's wild.
So it's that tight. So fingers crossed. Bit of luck, good run with injuries. Who knows? But like I said, if as it stands now, I think they're going to have their work cut out making the 8.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I'll give you one last one off the cuff. Who's your prediction for the Crichton Medal winner 2024?
Oh, it's not sexy, but I've got to go Zach Merritt.
Yep.
I mean, he's the best player by some margin on the list, and he's the most consistent player by some margin on the list. So logically, you think that has him winning it again. And I actually think he went to another level last year. I mean, the leadership mantle, really suited him. He just took to it like a duck to water. So I think it's boosted his performance even more. So again, with all due respect to Zach, I hope it's someone else because it'll prove that someone else has stepped up. But he'd have to be at short odds to win it again, I would have thought.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. It's hard to go past him. Like there's a few guys where if Parrish had a clean season with injuries, he could do it. Ridley possibly the same, and then if it's a Peter Wright or a Langford pull a 50-60 goal year, they could. But after those 3 or 4 names, like who else is going to do it? Like you can't really see it happening. So
No, great.
it's a safe bet, Rowan. So if you are going to, if someone was going to put money on it, I think that is the safest option to go for. Rowan, you've been very generous with your time, and we appreciate your insight heading into another season of Essendon footy. And here's hoping we're all feeling positive come season's end and not down in the dumps as we have been the last 20 odd years.
Yeah, well, it'd be nice to say something positive and not constantly having a whinge about the club I love. So go Bombers.
Hello, everybody. We're continuing our preview of the 2024 season for the Bombers, and I'm very happy to be joined by the Herald Sun's Mark Robinson. Hello, mate.
G'day, Rob. How are you, pal?
I'm good. Thank you for having me in your humble abode.
Driving out here to North Warrendine. Nice drive.
Yeah. So we've got 5 prompts that we're asking everyone as part of our preview, and I've sent them through. So we'll start with the first one. So it's a big year for who or what?
It's a big year for this football club. Now, that is such an easy thing to say, and it might be a boring thing to say. But this football club is either treaded water or half drowned in the last 25 years.
Yep.
25 might be too much. The last 20 years. And the club has tried to do things all through that period, right? The Essendon Supplement saga really took a lot out of the club. We know that. But that's not an excuse anymore. There's no excuses. Now, it's got to be no excuse football this year. No injuries play a role, but it plays a role with everything. So they brought on Brad Scott. And Brad Scott's brought in a lot of his people, and they've still got people there that he inherited. But listening to Brad speak and people at Essendon speak, they're really, really happy with the setup of the club. Okay, the board, the administration, the football department. Righto. You're setting up a good club. That's great. But at some stage, this setting up of a good club must be reflected by the results on the field.
Correct.
It must be. And even the most loyal Essendon supporters you've got listening to this would say, I would think, that Essendon is a soft football team. Just look at last year's finals. I went to nearly all of them. It is a bruising 110 minutes of absolute bruising football. And I can't remember the last time Essendon played 110 minutes of bruising football.
Yeah.
Actually, in fact, their last 230 minutes of football was absolutely pathetic. Right? And there's reasons and excuses in it. But stop with the excuses. Just stop. So it's a big year. It's a big year for the substance of this footy team.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about individuals which we will, but I'm not having a go at any individual. I'm talking about the collective.
Yeah.
I don't know when Essendon run out. I don't know how much trust I've got in that footy team.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, I go most weeks when the games are in Melbourne, I'm there, I'd say 90% of the games. And there are some mornings you wake up going, oh, God, what's going to happen? There are some mornings you wake up feeling pretty confident, and most of the time it goes the opposite way that you feel. All I want this year is I want the bottom of what our performances are to lift because, look, it's only a couple of wins from 12th to 5th, as we know, and we could make finals good. But I just don't want to be sitting there, whether it's at the ground or watching on TV, watching these, 8, 9, 10 goal losses we're going nowhere. Like, it can be, I don't know, some people don't like it when you say an admirable loss, but if we're losing and I'm still going, gee, we almost got that, we should have won that, and we're still
admirable losses.
Yeah, it is.
It's a win-loss industry.
Yeah,
but they're admirable losses when you're a lower team. You've got kids and you're coming through.
Yeah, and
you're taking on the might of Collingwood, and you go down by 10 points on a Sunday afternoon at the MCG in the middle of the winter, and you say, well done. That was.
You had a crack.
That was really good. Well, look at it this way.
I just want to be reliable, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, Essendon's not reliable.
I know. That's what I want.
The Western Bulldogs, off the top of my head, lost 6 games by under 12 points.
Yeah.
They missed the finals by a couple of percentage points, I think. I can't remember.
Yeah.
It's either a game or a couple of percentage points. And they had a complete review of their football department, internal and external review. And they lost 6 games by less than 12 points. And they still were saying, this is not good enough. We have to change. Essendon get belted.
Yeah.
Like, belted. Okay? Like, if the Dogs get belted in the first 6 rounds this year, they're going to be calling for Luke Beveridge to get sacked.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think in the last 1 year, 10 years, 15 years, there's been not an acceptance of mediocrity, but an expectation of mediocrity. I don't know if Essendon supporters get angry anymore. They were angry at the last 2 games last year.
Oh, it's filthy.
It was embarrassing.
Oh, it's filthy.
It was absolutely embarrassing.
But I expected it, and that's the sad part. The sad part is that I saw it coming weeks earlier, and I called it on the show, and I said, "Season's done. We're not playing finals." People were like, "Oh, we can still make finals. You can't be dark." I'm like, "No, we're done. Like this is over," and it happened.
No, well, you're spot on. You're spot on. Now that's just unacceptable. We can't. That commentary from 2 people who follow the club, that sort of commentary is unacceptable.
Yeah.
So just imagine what every other fan of their team thinks of Essendon.
They don't think much.
They don't think much. So Essendon hasn't got respect. So when you ask me what do you want to see from the club this year, or what's the question you ask me?
It's a big year for the club.
It's a big year for the substance of this football club.
Yeah.
Because they still haven't regained the respect that they think they deserve. They don't deserve respect at the moment.
No, they've got to earn it.
You've got to earn it. And not just for 5 weeks. And hopefully it's for 14 weeks. And hopefully it's for 20 weeks.
Yeah.
And then hopefully they get in a final and there's 90,000 at the MCG and it's Essendon Carlton. Elimination final or qualifying final.
That'd be great.
That'd be awesome. But that has been so long for Essendon supporters.
My second prompt that I sent through to you, the greatest unknown for Essendon in 2024 is what?
The greatest unknown. The greatest unknown is whether the spine outside of the centre square, outside of the middle, the midfield group, is the spine good enough? Now, Peter Wright and Jones, 2 key forwards at the moment.
Langford as well, I guess you could say.
Peter Jones. You know Peter Jones?
Peter Jones,
Peter Jones was a former Essendon ruckman, come from Hawthorn.
Yeah. I think Harry Jones is probably the guy we're thinking of.
Harry
and Kyle,
Jones,
yeah.
And Peter Wright. I think Wright's hit and miss, and Jones is working his way up to be a player that is reliable, to borrow your word. His body hasn't been able to stand up. That position requires a lot of presenting, a lot of running, a lot of getting bashed up in the air. You got to keep getting up.
Go again,
keep getting up, going again. They're very difficult players to find, 22 game centre forwards who not have to bash and crash, but they get bashed and crashed.
Yeah.
So I think there's an unknown there. And up the other end, which is a positive unknown, if that makes sense, Zach Reid and Ben Mackay turning up. Will those 2 players transform that back six?
Yeah.
Now, the unknown is they've got to stay in the park. Both of them have had injury issues. Zach Reid's, 4th year?
This is season 4 and he's played 8 games.
Right, season 4?
Yeah.
And Ben Mackay, 10 seasons for 80 games.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got...
Doesn't look good on paper.
No, it doesn't look good on paper. So the great unknown is whether those 2 can stand up in those 2 positions. Take the 2 big guys from the other end. Reid looks really accomplished.
Yeah, I like the look of him.
Anyone watching football looks at this kid and go, yep, he's someone, if he can stay in the park, he can play on the big guys. You can take Charlie Kerno in front of 85,000 at the MCG and stand up and do it well. Because that's what you're going to have to do.
Exactly.
If Essendon are going to go places, you've got to stand on Joe Danaher. You might have to run with Joe Danaher.
Yeah.
You know, this is what you have to do.
It's big. I remember when he got drafted, and obviously had him, Cox and Perkins consecutively, and he was injured, he wasn't playing. Someone said to me, I spoke to, they go, "Oh, he's the best of the three." And I was like, "Really?" I'm like, "I like the look of Perkins," and Cox had a really big first year, and we're like, "Oh wow, what's he going to do?" Everyone's like, so this guy said to me, he was like, "No, Reed's the one," and I'm like, and then it's been 4 years now. I'm sitting there going, I just got to see him. I just want to see him play.
He looks like a man now.
Yeah.
Like usually when the kids come in, especially the tall ones like him, they're thin, they're wiry, and their bodies have. Far from me being a body expert, but you talk to so many people about these young people and their body's still developing, and they get these injuries and they get stress fractures in their feet, and they might have something wrong with their back, and it's because they're still growing and the demands of training and their bodies aren't ready. I watch the St Kilda game and there's Reed, and you think, God. He's not a kid.
No.
He's a young man. He's young as a man, but he's a man now. What is he, 21, 22?
Yeah.
He's been working in the gym.
He's grown 3 or 4 centimetres whilst he's been at the club.
I reckon he's put on
He's
10
big, and
kilograms.
he's bigger than the ruckman now, which is wild. Wild to think.
Is. So if he can stand up and Ben Mackay can stand up, that will enhance Essendon's chances of playing finals if they fix other areas of their game.
Yeah.
But they needed to fix that area,
Yeah.
and they've gone out and done it. So well done to Adrian Dodoro for nailing Zach Reed and convincing Ben Mackay to come over.
I'm most concerned about what? Everything.
Yeah, no, I'm not concerned about everything. We've sort of crossed over a bit. We've spoken about the strength of the defence. I'm most concerned about whether Essendon's got enough star factor players that can change games.
Yeah.
Because there's role players. Elvis, stop. There's role players. There's key position players. There's your midfielders. I like to call them the freewheelers. Now, Collingwood have got a couple. Collingwood have got Dacos and Jordan DeGoey. Petrarca from Melbourne. I think Essendon has to turn Nick Martin into that player where, mate, don't worry so much about defending or where you got to be defensively. Think offense.
Yeah.
You're our man.
Yeah.
Right? You're our trigger man.
You're the quarterback.
Connor Rosie.
Yeah.
Bang.
Yeah.
And start separating games with your brilliance. I don't know if Essendon's got enough brilliant players that separate games. I think Zach Merritt is an outstanding player. He's an accumulator. Better than accumulator. He's better than accumulator. He gets a lot of the pill. I would like it if he kicked more goals. Same with Darcy Parish. They've got to kick more goals, I think.
I think Zach's weakness is that he doesn't handle the tag very well. There's that, like he's definitely up there with some of the best mids in the comp, but I think there's this next echelon where someone goes to them and they wear it and they still perform, which I don't think he can do.
No, he has been shut down before, but a lot of times Zach will have 38 and Essendon lose by 46.
Yeah.
Like, the coaches aren't tagging Zach Merritt when that's happening.
No.
And Darcy Parish is one of the most interesting players in the competition. You know, really good clearance player, gets the pill. He gets bashed by Essendon fans. God, some Essendon fans hate him. No, I'll take that back. They don't hate him. They get frustrated with him. You know, can he become a more dominant midfielder? I mean, I know we're talking about sending Nick Martin to the back flank, but let's have some more dominant players through the middle and inside, not between the centre square and half forward where a lot of the magic happens. I don't know if Essendon got enough star power.
Yeah.
You know, people say he's a good player, he's a good player, he's a good player. But other teams seem to have more good players. More players better than good, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I see
or
that.
their role they play seems to be accomplished better than what Essendon's role players. Now, it's easy to pick holes. The last 2 games, they lost by 200 points.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to pick of the period, say, round of 10, round 11, when they were going okay. What were the concerns then? The small midfield, the defence was trying to fix the defence. The worry is still the forward line. But do we have a Jordan De Goey? Everyone would say that's Jake Stringer. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's just not. Nick Dacos, Zach Butters, Christian Petrarca. No. That's a concern I've got. Now the young fellow, how do you pronounce his name? Sardis.
Yeah. Looks very raw.
Very raw, and he's working on his kicking.
Yeah. As for a top 5 pick.
Yeah, that's a concern.
The fact that that's what there is, I don't like it. Like, look, he's a young kid, benefit of the doubt, give him some time. But seeing some of the other players who were drafted past him by some of the other clubs who were playing regularly, and I sort of look at them going, why did we go after this guy who doesn't seem to be totally ready? Whereas there are some other guys that are.
I don't think he's going to be ready. Not many are,
Yeah.
right? But you got to invest in the future. So what did they see in this young fella? Clearly he can run.
Absolutely.
And the game's going to be about running.
Huge tank.
And he can find the pill, right? And his junior levels, big numbers. That'll come as he gets better. But is he going to be a player that grows to separate games? He may, with his speed and knowledge of the game, gets better and his fitness gets better. But if he has to, that kicking situation, he's not a terrible kick. He's an awkward-looking kick sometimes.
Yeah.
And it doesn't hit the target sometimes. But that can be improved. Would you prefer it to be naturally gifted ability to
Of course I
kick
would.
the ball?
Would I prefer him to be like, the 3-peat Hawthorn side players who could all just, hit the middle of a dartboard? But he's not that.
The left-footed dynasty out there, the Hawks.
That'd be nice.
But we're not having a go at the kid. He's only a young fellow.
Of course.
I hope he grows to be, a wonderful Essendon player. But I wonder if he's in the best 22
Yeah, he's in
right now.
Yeah, I think there's. I think if we went through the team, I think the first 18 or 19, everyone would probably have the same players, and then the next, that's that bench. I think there's probably 7 or 8 who are going to go into 4 or 5.
But
I think he's in that group.
Yeah, he's in that group. So then they've got to decide how many midfielders on the bench. 2, 2.5.
Yeah.
So maybe a guy's got to be able to play defence if something happens.
Do we play 2 rucks or 1? What do we do?
I wonder about that talk. They might play 3. I mean, Brian's ain't getting a game with the other 2. But I think they might play the 2 ruckmen. I think they have to.
Yeah.
Not that I expect Todd Goldstein to go forward a lot, even though he has for North Melbourne over 300 million games. Of course he has. But I think they'll need that presence down there because we've just spoken, for 20 minutes now, and 6 minutes of it was on the concerns with the Essendon forward.
Yeah.
50. So maybe they need Draper down there. Maybe they're going to have to need Goldstein down there just for periods of the game, not all the time. 5 minutes a quarter, 6 minutes a quarter.
Yeah. The next prompt, the best inclusion to Essendon's team will be what? Or who?
The best inclusion.
Yeah.
We've spoken about everyone. He won't be the best inclusion. I think the best inclusion will be the 2 key backs.
Yeah.
Right? That's who I think will be the best 2 inclusions. Of the recruits, I think Jay Gresham, in his role as a creative half forward, high half forward, who can kick goals, I think that's a player that Essendon's been looking for quite some time.
Yeah.
Tippenwoody was really good at it, and then his career come to an end. He wasn't getting a kick, so he had a long sort of footy death, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then he went away, come back.
Wasn't up to it.
That was never going to happen. I don't know why they did that. They got their reasons for it,
Yeah.
but he couldn't get himself fit enough. and now he's retired. And good luck to him. He was really good for a period. And he's talking about has Essendon ever had two key forwards running at the same stage? Has Essendon really had three mid-sized small forwards going well at the same stage? Gresham's smart. He's a really smart player. I think he's going to do really, really well.
We spoke earlier about players who could kick 40 goals. I don't think he's ever done it in his career. Do you think he's one of those people who might?
He's capable. Depends, because he's so creative and agile, and he's a bit of a relief midfielder. He gets put when it's Kilda. He would get pushed into there a little bit because he was so talented. He said, "Oh, beauty, we're going to have this gun midfielder. Have a look at him." But he couldn't quite secure that sort of gun midfielder role. I don't know how well he went defensively because he's such a creative forward. He probably didn't think about defence for the first 19 years of his life. Okay, but against Geelong, I thought he was really good.
So,
and then I'm not saying anything anyone doesn't know. If they watch the game, of course, he really stood out. But Essendon has to be better with their small mid forwards. He'll take one of those positions. I'll start Stringer. No doubt there's two. They've got Wright, Jones. If they stand up, there's four. And they've got a glut of midfielders. Where are they all going to fit?
Yeah.
Where are they going to fit?
Exactly. They can't fit them all in.
Like Parrish and Merritt in the middle. They're going to Setterfield maybe.
Setterfield, to me, going off what I've seen at least in the last two practice games and sample size from last year, Setterfield seems like one of Scott's favourites.
Yeah, sorry.
He's in.
He's in.
I think Durham's in.
I know Durham will have to take a wing.
Yeah. And then, funnily enough, so at least in the Geelong game, so Archie Perkins didn't attend a centre bounce, which I think's interesting.
Are they going to just keep Archie Perkins on the other high forward?
Possibly.
There's massive pressure on Archie.
I think, big pressure.
Yeah,
he seems like a really calm kid, but
yeah, there is. And
I have my worries now coming into this year.
It's funny when we all talk footy, whether you're in the media or you're a fan or whenever you talk footy. Nothing's personal, right? They could be, the Father Bobs at their footy club, the most beautiful, lovely people.
Yeah.
But we're not looking at that. We're just looking at footballers.
Yeah.
Now Archie Perkins showed so much promise and then just fell off a cliff. Now that can happen. Well, we've all seen it. It can happen in football. But that's a concern. But that's not the end of the story. What's the next part of your story?
Yeah.
Archie. What you're going to be there to write it. Okay? So you're going to get the opportunity to write the next chapter of your story, because what happened, you came in and that first second, you had a cracking year. Like, who's this kid? This is what Essendon been looking for ages. And high half forward. Oh, they want to push him in the midfield. Everyone needs to get pushed in the midfield, everyone says. No. Right? He doesn't get enough pill. So leave him at high half forward. Okay. So what's going to happen this year? Have you, Archie, got the capability to kick 30? Can you be Brent Daniels from the Giants?
Yeah.
Who works up and down the ground really hard, defends, when he gets the ball, really creative and really dangerous.
Because he's a good user, he's a good mark, he stands up and tackles. Yeah. He has all the attributes.
He does a lot of things right, but then, unfortunately, he'll get a game and he'll have 8 touches, and you think, I didn't see one of them. So I think it's a big year. It's a big year for a lot of people, but you've got to be positive. Right? You've got to be positive. If Scott can untap whatever clogged Archie Perkins' footy, be it the mental side of it, was he fit enough? Was he played out of position? We don't know. There's all sorts of reasons why players fall off the boil. But that's okay. That happens. We're now on to another season. What have you got, Archie? Because if Essendon go really, really well, and you got you and Gresham on the old-fashioned forward flanks or playing high half forward, and you got young Jones taking marks, suddenly Essendon's got a very dangerous looking front six.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's another if.
It is another if.
It's another if.
It's another if.
I hope it works for him. But again, how do you fit him in? How do you fit them all in? Where's Ben Hobbs?
Yeah, I think he's a bit injured. So he had a bit of an injury to pre-season, which
Right,
is why he hasn't played so far.
He's fit and ready to go. Where do you play Ben Hobbs?
Couldn't tell you. And I'll be honest, I don't think the coaches know either.
I think he's the second wave midfielder.
Yeah, like Caldwell.
It's like the NBA.
Yeah,
when they rest the stars and they call them the
second string guys come for 3 minutes. Yeah.
I think he's a second string midfielder.
Yeah.
He wins the hard ball, which Essendon needs.
Yeah.
I think he's a pretty fine footballer.
So
I don't know his ceiling. I don't know, but he'll get better. He'll get fitter. He'll get smarter. So I think he's in.
Yeah, I think he'll probably be in the 22.
Yeah,
it's just how they work it, because look, like they know, the coaches, they're like, how do we fit all these guys in? And you have to go, all right, who has a bit of forward craft that can spend some time in there? Yeah. Is it just the fact that someone's just going to have to spend an extra 10 minutes on the bench each game to make the rotations work? The thing is, people get injured, people get suspended. So there's always going to be someone who's able to step up, which is good. And it's good knowing we have depth in that area.
Hasn't got a lot of versatility.
I don't think so either. Yeah.
I think it's inside mid or bust. Not bust, inside mid, or you're going to struggle. I think they played him on a half-forward flank a couple of times last year. Yeah. It didn't quite fit. It's funny, I don't know how old you are, but...
33.
You would have read...
I'm 33 this year.
Right, you would have read the history of Essendon and Kevin Sheedy, and, in 1984... I was a teenager and Essendon won the flag. I can still remember it, Lou Richards commentating. This is Sheedy's flag. Versatility. Sheedy threw around his team. He was one of the first coaches to make massive positional changes and then had the balls to do it in a grand final. Now, it was forced because they were down, but he made all these positional changes. And I was thinking this the other night. The versatility required now to play AFL is immense. Now, if you can play half-back, wing, half-forward, how valuable are you? Now, you might not be as good a footballer as a guy who can play wing, but your versatility as a person on the bench might force out that person who's got that slight more ability, but he's a bit more limited in his being able to play certain positions. Now, can Durham play half-back flank? Yeah, but he's not under threat.
Yeah,
he's not under threat.
I think they probably want to keep him forward of the ball, because I don't think his kicking's probably at the ability of a Nick Martin, for example. Although probably no one else in the team is other than Zach. But
Essendon's kicking's average, I would say. I haven't got the stats in front of me. Champion data, I would say. Essendon's kicking efficiency. I don't know what it is, but I would probably bet $1 million it's not the best in the competition.
No. Like, to my eye, I don't think it's very good. Sometimes the data proves me wrong, but I watched that Geelong game and there was, again, it's pre-season, people are rusty, but there were some turnovers that made me go, what was he trying to do there? What was this guy trying to do? I'm not sure.
Well, and that goes back to the original concern, the game plan.
Yeah.
Will it stack up?
Yeah.
You got to kick the ball short like they did, time and again. That's fine, and it looks really controlled when it comes off. When it doesn't, it exposes so many holes on the ground. So, but then again, you don't want teams to go long down the line all the time, because it's what Melbourne does, and they've got criticised. And Melbourne are changing up their forward structure and going short. And Essendon just got a bunch of ifs about them.
Yeah.
Wherever you look, there's if, and if you've got too many ifs, it's going to give you a lot of buts.
Yeah. The last prompt. Essendon will finish blank on the ladder because blank.
I think they'll finish between 11th and 13, 14.
Okay. Yeah.
11 and 14.
Yeah.
My top eight is Brisbane Giants, Collingwood, Port Adelaide, Carlton, Sydney, Melbourne, St Kilda. And that's my
Is that the same as last year? Has anyone come out?
No,
of that?
yeah. I actually picked it.
No change. Okay.
And I was tossing up St Kilda and Adelaide. I got Adelaide 9th.
Yeah.
Dogs 10th. I think I had Essendon 11th. Geelong 12th.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's going in Monday's paper.
Yeah.
Or it's online now.
Yeah.
It's on Sunday afternoon. Yeah, I know people give me stats about all this and there's always changes but you can only pick what you pick.
Yeah.
I think Sydney will improve. I think Port Adelaide is a really good side.
Yeah.
I think Melbourne, what's going to happen with Melbourne, but Melbourne went out and played against Carlton, their practice match, and
They look pretty good.
but they've always played a menacing kind of game. Melbourne. Like when Melbourne goes out and plays, right, you know what you're going to get. You are going to get fierce attack on the ball, really strong contest, a really organised back group with Lever and May.
Yeah.
And you got, a couple of warrior midfielders, Petrarca, and their issue is, can they kick enough goals? So they're trying to find enough goals. That's not Essendon's profile.
No.
Well, look at them run out. God, they're fierce, they're strong, their bodies are strong, they're going to play hard contested footy. That's what footy can be. There's not many blowouts in games of football where you can just run around without pressure on you. So this is fun. Oh, have a look at this. Just all line up. So that's right. Where do you think they'll finish? Top 4?
No.
Okay.
No.
So we'll rule that top 4.
No. I mean,
6 or 7?
I think the other thing I've done my ladder a few times, and like,
how do you do your ladder?
if you go on look, if you go on last year, 5th to 14th is separated by 3 wins.
Yeah.
So that means that any of those teams could make it. I think the top 4 are all going to stay. They're all clearly very good home and away sides. I don't think we're going to see Hawthorn, North or West Coast near it. Gold Coast, the one who can come into that equation. But I think that middle 8 teams, is an absolute lotto. And I know there's some people who go,
you've got Port Adelaide in that middle 8 team with Essendon.
No. Port Adelaide finished top 4. I'm talking about home and away.
Port, top 4.
Home and away.
Right.
So we're just excluding finals because everyone's saying, Giants are going to be crash high. And they're a good team. Don't get me wrong, they're amazing in the finals. But they were still really flaky in the home and away season. And it's a long season and there's a lot of up and down.
Time.
Yeah.
I give credit to Adam Kingsley and people who have played the game and coached the game. They always say, it takes a period of time to adjust to what the coach wants.
Yeah, of course.
Right? You can talk about it and talk about it and talk about it, and they can train it, but it's not until the actual game starts and the mistakes are made and say, right, we've been teaching you not to do that, and it takes time.
Yeah.
I think by round 10, they were playing the brand of football that Adam Kingsley wanted them to play.
Yeah. I guess my point is that just that the gap between those sides is so small. And if you look at Essendon's season last year, even though there were some very good examples of why we should not have played finals, but if they didn't fall over at 3/4 time on Anzac Day, if Dan Houston didn't slot one from outside 60, if Ridley didn't get KO'd against Port over there and we somehow jagged a narrow win, that could be enough to sneak you in.
It would have got them in.
Yeah, but then again, we might have been here going, we lost another elimination final. So
that doesn't.
I just don't know. I've been saying 10th. 10th is my call because I think it's kind of just where we're at.
Okay, so it's 10th. Is that acceptable?
No.
You know what it is? It's another year of treading water.
Exactly.
This is the first thing we spoke about when we did this podcast. They got to, instead of us talking about, we think they're going to finish 10th, and that's our belief. Now, we may be wrong, Rob. We may be really wrong. Yeah. And Essendon comes out and everything falls into place, and they're a top 4 team.
Happy days.
Wow. A lot has to go right. And Essendon are really confident, right, in their group. If that happens, you think, fantastic. But right here, right now, 5 days away from the first game of the season, that confidence level or that trust level is not with me with Essendon.
No, neither.
That's all. Yeah, they can find trust. They can get the confidence. You've got to see it. Right, Rob. Good to talk to you, pal. Good luck with the year.
Thank you.